Palantir is having an absolutely crazy day. During trading, it was up over 8%, and we got as high as $26 at the close or just a few minutes after the close. And then a crazy dump all the way down into the $22 range, mid $22 at $4.26. And now we're climbing. All this craziness is around Q1 2024 earnings. Palantir reported today after the bell. We're going to get into all the good things. I made a video of things I was looking for. I'm going to go over those three things and some other highlights from the earnings and what I'm doing with Palantir stock as a result of these earnings. I'm excited to get into it once again with Palantir, but before we do that, if you're new here, I'm Austin. I'm a co-owner of cloudmusicsuite.com. I'm also a stock market investor and I'm a shareholder of Palantir. Been a shareholder for multiple years now, and it is a top 3 holding for me. It depends on the day as to where it is in my portfolio. Real quick, if you're not subscribed, become one of those 3,600 or so people and drop a like on the video. Those two things help out the channel in a massive way. I appreciate you doing that. Okay, let's get into the video. Palantir reported their Q1 2024 earnings. There's some really good stuff in here, and I actually want to start with what's been cited as a reason for Palantir dropping after they reported their earnings, and that's on the guidance side. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to when they forecasted for what they would report for Q1, and we're going to compare what they expected in their guidance to what they reported in Q1 of 2024 that they just reported after the bell today. This will give us an idea if they're just coming in and meeting those expectations or if they're coming in and beating those expectations and potentially sandbagging guidance a little bit. What it means to sandbag guidance is to give a little bit lower numbers than you actually think you're going to report so you can come in and crush those numbers and beat analyst expectations quarter in and quarter out. And of course, beat your own previously stated guidance and be able to raise that guidance each and every quarter throughout a year. So let's check it out. In the Q4 2023 earnings report, they said for Q1 2024, we expect revenue between $612 and $616 million. Fast forward to today, that's more than $20 million above the midpoint of their prior forecasted guidance for Q1. So on the revenue side, it looks like they are definitely sandbagging numbers for 2024 so that they can come in and beat those numbers every single quarter. That's what it looks like so far based on that. Let's check out the other guidance piece they gave for Q1. Adjusted income from operations of $196 to $200 million. So let's see what they actually reported. Q1 2024, they actually reported $226 million of adjusted income from operations. That's $26 million more adjusted operating income than they said for the high end of their range. So just based on those two things, it looks like Karp and the team are planning on sandbagging guidance for 2024. We'll see what happens throughout the rest of the year through Q2, Q3, Q4, but so far, that's what it looks like, and I like the look of it. That's one of the things I was looking for in this earnings report. So let's keep going with the guidance they gave in the earnings report today. They say for full year 2024, they're raising their revenue guidance between $2.677 and $2.689 billion. So here's one of the issues. People are frustrated. That guidance raise is only about $20 million of a guidance raise. They beat revenue estimates this quarter by about $20 million. So what they're forecasting here is that the rest of the quarters are going to be in line and just that Q1 is strong in the revenue side. And they see Q2, Q3, and Q4 being flat, exactly what they estimated prior in the Q4 2023 guidance. And that seems to be the main concern. If Palantir ends the post-market red and then we're red tomorrow again, I would say that that number right there is what people are most worried about. They were hoping for an even bigger revenue raise because that guidance raise really just takes Q1 2024 that was just reported into account because they beat revenue by about $20 million based on their prior guidance. That's what happens when we have stocks that are at higher valuations, growth names that are trading at nosebleed valuations on the PE and price to sales and PEG ratios, right? I'm not going to sit here and act like Palantir is an undervalued asset. We know that the valuation's been pushed quite a bit. When a valuation gets pushed on a stock, they have to come in and report an absolutely perfect quarter for the stock to go up, and even then the stock might go down if just one number is disappointing or disappointing in the eyes of Wall Street. Even if it has no real negative bearing on the long-term outlook of the company, the stock can move down in the short term because expectations were not met or expectations weren't exceeded in the fashion that Wall Street wanted them to be exceeded. That's just something to keep in mind with a higher valuation name. Does this affect the long-term growth outlook for Palantir? No. Let's continue with the guidance they gave in Q1. They're raising their U.S. commercial revenue guidance to in excess of $661 million, representing a growth rate of at least 45%. I want to go back to 3 months ago when they reported their Q4 2023 earnings and check out almost that same sentence. They said U.S. commercial revenue in excess of $640 million, so they raised that by about $21 million, and it says representing a growth rate of at least 40%. So they raised that growth rate expectation from 40 to 45% on the U.S. commercial revenue growth side. That is beautiful, and we love to see that. Accelerating revenue growth, accelerating expectations for their revenue growth on the U.S. commercial side. Very impressive and what we want to see. We already hit that revenue guidance news. That was the first thing I was looking for. Second thing is that U.S. commercial growth and the U.S. commercial customer count growth. So let's dive into that next. In Q1, they had 40% U.S. commercial revenue growth on a year-over-year basis and 69% year-over-year growth on U.S. customer count. That's a 19% quarter-over-quarter increase on U.S. commercial customer count. I was wanting to see that number higher than the U.S. commercial revenue growth number. And that's exactly what we got, almost 30% higher on the customer count growth versus the revenue growth. This gives me a lot of assurance that their boot camps are working. They're trying to take you from not knowing what Palantir is at all to being able to use Palantir in your workspace within 5 days. These boot camps are clearly working. 69% year-over-year U.S. commercial customer count growth is very, very impressive. And it means good things for the next few quarters and for the next few years, to be honest, because of the nature of Palantir's business. They're not trying to sign short-term deals that are not going to be renewed. They're trying to keep a client for 3, 5, 7, 10, 15 years or longer that uses their products. So it seems like this positive flywheel is starting with U.S. commercial growth for Palantir, and I love to see it. I'm glad to be a part of it. A few more crazy growth metrics: 74% year-over-year U.S. commercial remaining deal value, 136 U.S. commercial deals closed with a 94% year-over-year growth on U.S. commercial deals closed. And then a staggering 131% year-over-year U.S. commercial total contract value. These numbers are ridiculous on the growth side for the U.S. commercial part of Palantir's business, and that is what's leading the growth of the company right now. So they came in and delivered. I'm a happy shareholder on both of the first two things I was looking for, and then we'll chat about the third right now. Share repurchases were the third thing. I wanted to hear commentary around share repurchases or just see if they had repurchased any stock. Checking out the consolidated statement of cash flows, repurchases of common stock were $9 million. That's a very small number, but they are repurchasing shares at a slow rate clearly. But I would bet if we see the valuation come down, Palantir is probably going to deploy a lot of their cash into repurchasing stock. They've shown here that they are willing to repurchase stock, but they don't want to do it in a big way right now because they probably don't love the valuation of the stock right now. A good management team really understands when to do a buyback and when not to do a buyback, when to buy back shares heavy and when to buy back shares light. To buy back shares light, it's probably a good idea to kind of do that all the time, assuming you're a profit generating company. To buy back shares heavy, you should only be doing that when the valuation of the stock is very low. It seems like Palantir's management team understands this, so I feel really good that there's another floor underneath Palantir. So if we see any kind of weakness, Palantir themselves is going to come in and scoop shares up, take those shares off the market, and that helps overall shareholder return in the long term. So on those three main things I was looking for: satisfied, satisfied, and satisfied. I'm happy. I'm a happy shareholder of Palantir. I'm not mad about anything I saw. I'm very excited about the numbers on the U.S. commercial growth side. The revenue guidance numbers are respectable. The beat on revenue was very, very, very respectable in Q1, and then that share repurchase is underway. It's just in a minor way, which I actually like because we all know that Palantir's valuation has been stretched a pretty fair amount. So now I want to get into some other highlights. The first highlight I want to talk about is around net income and operating income. So Palantir just reported their 6th consecutive quarter of GAAP net income of $105.5 million and their 5th quarter in a row of GAAP operating income of $80.9 million. The growth on the operating income has been ridiculous. Check it out. From negative $62.2 million in Q3 of 2022 up to negative $17.8 million, and then 4.1, 10.1, 40.0, 65.8, and then $80.9 million. In a 2-quarter span since Q3 of 2023 to Q1 of 2024, they have over doubled their operating income. This management team is running the business beautifully. I remember just a few quarters ago, people making videos saying, yeah, Palantir is profitable on a GAAP basis now, but it's just because of interest income. I don't want interest income. People said I would just buy a bond fund if I wanted interest income. What can you say now? Look, they got $80 million of GAAP operating income, which is nearly double of their interest income at $43.35 million. I've said this multiple times in multiple videos, but the bear cases around Palantir are falling away quarter in and quarter out because the management team is executing every single quarter. The sentiment is shifting around Palantir and we're seeing it play out in front of our eyes. I've seen it play out over the last multiple years. This is going from a hated stock that was extremely disrespected to a very loved stock in a very short period of time, and that's mostly because of how they're running the business and the crazy growth they've had in net income and in income from operations on a GAAP basis. These are so impressive, one of the best turnarounds I've seen in recent memory, and I'm glad that I'm a shareholder of Palantir and I get to experience this, and that I get to benefit from it, from the share price getting more and more respected, because we know that stocks follow earnings on the long term, and we're seeing that play out in front of our eyes. We already know that Palantir has one of the best balance sheets in the entire stock market, and they're just making it stronger each and every quarter, strengthening their balance sheet once again, increasing assets by $300 million inside this quarter. To have $4.8 billion of assets and no debt is a crazy position of strength that we want Palantir to have so that they can weather literally any economic storm that we might go through. So overall, once again, an absolutely amazing quarter for Palantir. 21% revenue growth, another net income positive quarter, income from operations growing like crazy. I can't say enough great things about Palantir. The US commercial growth on the revenue side, customer count side, remaining deal value, etc., total contract value is ridiculous. They are killing it. The boot camps are working. They're buying back a small number of shares and they're raising that revenue guidance. And it seems like they sandbagged at the beginning of the year. And who's to say they're not going to do that again and come in and crush the Q2 2024 guidance they just gave of $649 million to $652 million on the revenue side, and then adjusted income from operations of $209 to $213 million. Are they going to come in and crush that number? I want to hear what you have to say. And what are they going to do for full year 2024? Do you think these numbers they're giving are sandbag numbers so that they can come in and crush it? Or is this really what they're going for and they just had a better Q1 than expected? I want to hear your thoughts about that. So no matter what happens in the aftermarket with Palantir, I'm a happy shareholder. This is a great earnings. If Wall Street wants to dump Palantir down 6%, 8%, 10%, 12% after hours, it really doesn't change anything about what I'm doing. I've built out my position for the most part. If we drop in a major way, of course, I'll pick up some more shares, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think lowest we'll go is into the 22s, because there were so many extremely strong things in this quarter. And the reason the stock's dropping is because just a few things didn't exceed analyst expectations as they wanted them to, so the stock's getting disrespected because the valuation had been stretched so much. I'm a happy shareholder of Palantir. I'm still holding all my shares, definitely not selling a single share due to these earnings. I can't wait to see what Palantir does for the rest of 2024 and beyond. Let me know how you feel about this earnings for Palantir in the comments below. Do you think the aftermarket move of down 6% as of recording this video is justified, or do you think the stock should be up? I want to hear about it, and let me know what you're doing with Palantir. Thanks so much for being here. Have an amazing day.